So hello again, guys. In this video, before returning to much more pressing matters and pressing business, I'd like to speak some more on the Daniel Robinson case and just examine that a bit in detail from the perspective of what might have happened in the Daniel Robinson case and situation. Now, admittedly, in this respect, there's no real evidence and nothing as far as concrete proof or evidence as of yet to indicate what may have occurred with Mr. Daniel Robinson. That's something that we haven't gotten into the meat and potatoes of quite yet. So I'm admitting at the onset that this Daniel Robinson video is it's going to be speculation. However, I'd like to go ahead and do that and really speculate about what may have happened to Daniel Robinson, because that, is that part of the imagination in every single individual, which helps people in general and will also help the wider audience understand and recognize what may have happened to Daniel Robinson, so that we can then uncover a lot of the important evidence, inferred evidence, and otherwise to determine what his fate was and what ultimately did occur with Daniel Robinson. So with that out of the way, I'm going to speculate kind of with some wild speculation here. But I'm going to base it on some of the interesting things that have been uncovered recently by some associates that looked into Daniel Robinson and, really start to put this together. So what I'm speculating here is it says that Daniel Robinson's car, his SUV, essentially stopped, near the Buckeye turnpike outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And it stopped for some reason right about the time he was going to cross a gorge, meaning some kind of actual ravine of some sort. It's not been revealed exactly what he was going to cross, but it was very, very important that the location of this ravine was essentially right there near Buckeye, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix. So what I'm speculating here is I wonder about this place that's called Manfredini Music. Now, Manfredini Music is already tied to another case in concrete. I'm not going to mention what and who here, because that would give details away to the audience that right now they don't need to know all of that. That would not be a good move at this point. But anyway, long story short, Manfredini Music also has an affiliate music studio in Missouri, of all places, which is very near to where some of these college professors have been found to be on the faculty and staff, and appear to at least have heard of someone by the name of Matthew Everett. Now, all that speculation aside, because there's still a lot that has to be looked deeply into and investigated to determine who and what Manfredini Music actually is. I'm going to speculate and say that Manfredini Music essentially has an affiliate. That's right, a sister company in Arizona. So let's break this down, and let's say I'm Daniel Robinson. I'm going for a drive, and I'm going out to Phoenix because I have questions, about the caves, and I want to find out about the mining operations that are going on in the area, because I'm a geologist. That's what I do. I study rocks, and I study the science of geology and what goes on in these places. So I go out there and I get in my SUV kind of truck and run off out of Buckeye, and I start going and I head down to this ravine area, and I realize I'm not going to be able to make it across this ravine, and I start really wondering about things. Now, it's been said in the press already that Mr. Robinson met a woman allegedly by the name of Caitlin, and they had kind of a brief kind of relationship of sorts. And she then broke it off with Mr. Daniel Robinson. So I'm going to speculate, and I'm going to place that into the timeline and say, okay, so now I know I can't go back home right now because I want to find out about these important rocks, and I can't see Caitlin because Caitlin is not going to talk to me for some reason, and I don't know why. So I'm thinking maybe I'll go to a music hall. So let's say that Daniel Robinson travels in his SUV and he goes down, the ramp into the Phoenix, Arizona area, and he realizes that he wants to, attend this musical event, and so he goes down there, and he finds a dive of some sort. We'll say it's kind of a bar/club that's the affiliate company of Manfredini Music, and is tied directly to Manfredini. So he goes in there and he enjoys a few drinks and he starts, rolling along with the tunes, and he meets someone, and that person ends up being a woman, and of course he follows her out, and she says, I can get you up the hill, I can get you up to the top of the mountain. You're a geologist, aren't you? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm very interested in that. And so he's not thinking very clearly at that point. And so the woman lures him up the mountain, perhaps to the ravine that he was trying to cross, let's just say. And she goes to the other side quite easily on her little bike, or jumps the ravine somehow, gets to the other side, and is like, come on. Can't hurt anything, right, Daniel? Come on to the other side. And so Daniel is very distracted, and she kind of starts going up the mountain. And behind Daniel is two murderers, William Sexton and Eric Sexton. Now, I'm going to say that this is all speculation, except for the part that William Sexton and Eric Sexton have criminal records that do include some murders, kind of manslaughter charges. And so these people are very real people, and they do know Manfredini music, apparently. And so Eric Sexton and William Sexton are, in real life, friends of that man that's been mentioned before with the last name Doherty. So they know about Manfredini music, and they saw Daniel Robinson get out of his SUV because he was distracted. And they decided to come up behind him. And he said, what are you doing out here? What's so interesting about the rocks? And he's like, oh, I just have to study this for my job. It's part of my job site expedition. He's like, well, this kind of research isn't really your field. I mean, you shouldn't be here. He's like, what do you mean? And then, of course, they go ahead and kill Daniel Robinson. Now, before this occurs, we see the SUV sped up, and it attempted to cross the ravine, so it may have circled over, flipped over, something like that. But the Sextons leave the scene and make it appear like Daniel Robinson lost control of his vehicle and just suddenly disappeared. And they kind of tip the Jeep, or the SUV over to make it kind of appear like that. And then William Sexton and Eric Sexton, laugh in the background, having killed Daniel Robinson. And they bury him under the rocks or something right there at the entrance to Phoenix, Arizona. Kind of an interesting speculative story. And it's all speculation, admittedly, but it's helping me determine more and more some of the ingredients of what may have in fact happened to Daniel. So the woman could be anybody, but maybe this woman was a friend or something of Caitlin somehow, let's say. And so there's got to be someone out there, I'm going to say a love interest or a potential love interest, that would be a person of interest in this case of the Daniel Robinson disappearance, and she likely knows who the people were, at least the first name of the people who killed Daniel Robinson or kidnapped him. And it's got to be a short list. There's probably people right there in the area that like music or something in Phoenix, or maybe there's people that are a part of the local geology mining company, but they were watching Mr. Daniel Robinson. That's the point. And so I'm trying to pinpoint it because, folks, the whole story doesn't make sense. And I wonder if somebody might have been watching Daniel Robinson for a while. Just like other serial killers often watch someone before they actually prey on them directly. And so, it's just real interesting. And it's food for thought. So thank you again. There will be true updates on the Daniel Robinson case within a week or so. But man, it's just amazing. A geologist. So guys, I'm still here, whatnot, doing some very important updates on the situation in case of Daniel Robinson right here. Now, there was an important update that's still being processed, but my account information and similar things got hit quite hard by these same people, that are being investigated, and rightfully certain things are being taken care of now. But it got hit quite hard, and so I'm doing these videos kind of separated out. And the part 2 on the other case that's related to, of course, Moab again, that will be going up after the Daniel Robinson video is all complete and taken care of. So this is essentially what we have right now with Mr. Robinson. He disappeared, interestingly, right here near a place called Pioneer Landscaping. And so, he could have traveled all in this area, including the mountains, and along the Western Road is his most probable route, which is West Cactus Road in this case, also known as Sun Valley Parkway. And so we look around here, and I'm just, kind of zeroing in on some key places of interest and getting some ideas here. I think it's very possible that if he was walking along West Cactus Road, he might have run into, the mountains off the slope, kind of going up towards more the area where Phoenix, and similar cities are. So he could have been up there in the mountains. But what's interesting about the map itself is there's some places along this trail for Cactus Road in specific that are really quite an isolationist spot. They're a spot that somebody would go to if they really wanted to be isolated from the world. And that's this kind of small patch of green you see over here, this little town looking thing. Part of that over here is known as the Lady of Solitude Monastery. And so, I don't know, I've just really been processing that recently and looking into it more. And what do you guys think? Is that something that might be worth really looking into? I think most likely an investigator should certainly ask the monastery what they might have seen, or the people who run a rock quarry. They kind of run like a rock quarry, I found out, right up here in this mountain range area. So that's certainly a possibility. Another possibility is Daniel Robinson could have gone, kind of northbound as far as you can possibly go, if his kidnappers, went down there, or he was running from somebody, or, whatever the situation might actually be, because we don't have all the facts yet. But let's assume that he was running from somebody who was trying to get rid of him. He could have gone here over to this area more near what's called the Copper Canyon Golf Club. So I've kind of been looking at that as well. It's a very interesting club. There's a lot of land, and there's a lot of places to hide. For somebody who doesn't want anything to be found, that's a very interesting area, to say the very least. And another interesting thing that I've noticed about the map, kind of as I studied it, is there's some off-the-track trails or roads that kind of go off the mountain pass and go down more into the southern reaches of Arizona, as it were. And it's just some really interesting places. I come to think that maybe Daniel Robinson, if he was resourceful, he might have gotten onto one of these trails. Either that or his kidnapper might have taken him up here on one of these trails. Because right here at this golf club, there's kind of a little town. And that little town is a place I've really had some questions about. So I'm going to explore that more. And I'm going to go into that just a little bit in video number 2 on the Daniel Robinson case. But what I find interesting about this is there's really quite a lot of places in the area, if you look very closely on the map for Google Maps and similar, that he could have camped out. That somebody could have, camped out and really hid quite well, because it's so surrounded by mountainous terrain. Caves, canyons, large ravines, cliffside walls that keep going up and don't seem to stop. And then, of course, what we see here is an interesting thing I've been investigating for a while called pioneer landscaping. Pioneer landscaping is interesting because it has some interesting connections to various people here. Here we can see kind of a more magnified map. It's a little easier to digest this one. So if he was heading west and he happened to be alive, we'll just say hypothetically maybe he was still, with us and so forth, he could have, potentially hiked quite a ways out there, gotten away from his pursuers on one of these side trails, basically on one of the freeways that pass right over Cactus Road. In any case, the interesting aspect about this Pioneer contracting company is it has a few connections with a person of interest in another case, a case that I've been covering in Illinois, and I don't want to get into it too much right this minute, but Mr. Everett, Matt Everett in this case, he is interesting because he's a certified ERP solar contractor. And he does a lot of contracting work with solar and hydrocarbon-based energy commodities, including, the counter and exchange trade of energy derivatives and modeling for energy prices for hydro, optimization. This basically is kind of geek language for he trades in energy markets a lot. And he's kind of indirectly connected to this company, Pioneer Contracting. So what I found interesting about that is, hey, it might be possible that Mr. Everett might know some more about this particular area. It's possible. And Pioneer Landscaping. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And so what I'm going to do is when I get to the next video, of course, I'm going to do a little bit of mapping out from the area of the golf club, the Copper Canyon Golf Club, and I'm going to see if I can make some, possible interesting connections around that area of his last known sighting here on Cactus Road, and also kind of that little town that's right here next to the golf club, and see what that might also connect to. So Mr. Everett, he knows about pioneer landscaping and contracting, and so it's possible, since he works in Phoenix, that he knew at least something about Mr. Robinson's disappearance. I can't rule that out. I'm not going to say that he really for certain knew, because that is really being an item that's under close investigation. But it's possible, at least, that he knew about Mr. Robinson's disappearance. So, I just find it interesting. There's a lot of little ravines and little roads, side roads and trails up here that go kind of off the beaten path into these contracting companies. And they're all potential places where